Exterior. A moderately obscure European airstrip. Day. The camera dollies past a series of neatly arranged suitcases, a broken harmonium, and a pigeon holding a classified microfilm in its beak. We hear the narrator. The film board gathers. This week, a gang of thugs donned their finest pastels to unravel the Phoenician Scheme.
At this moment, rescue workers are laboring to recover and identify the remains of Zsa-Zsa Korda, international businessman, maverick in the fields of armaments and aviation, among the richest men in Europe. This was Korda's 6th recorded airplane crash. He is survived by 10 children, 9 boys, 1 nun, his daughter Liesel.
I've appointed you sole heir to my estate, which you may come into sooner rather than later.
Why? It's been 6 years since our last meeting.
I have my reasons.
Which are what?
My reasons? I'm not saying. I'm saying I'm not saying. Korda Land and Sea Phoenician Infrastructure Scheme. My most important project of my lifetime.
Our objective: disrupting, obstructing, impeding, crippling Korda's enterprise in any manner possible.
Get the hand grenades. Today, tonight, and tomorrow, we rendezvous with every Titan and pretend we agree what we already agreed. But in fact, we don't. We can't. Call it.
Heads.
Heads.
Is this supposed to be here? It was under the lunch trolley.
Oh dear, who shot you?
Cera's from out of town. Help yourself to a hand grenade.
You're very kind.
Could you imagine falling in love with a man like me, by the way, hypothetically?
You're drunk on 3 beers.
Why are you shooting my ceiling?
This is a robbery on behalf of...
I understand that. I'm asking about my ceiling. You idiots are destroying a magnificent nightclub.
In the spring of a year that could be 1963 or 2025, depending on one's taste in lapel width, a man named Anatole Korda, call him Zsa-Zsa, boarded a luxury aircraft bound for divine reconciliation. The plane crashed. His soul did not. What followed was a spiritual espionage caper involving 1 nun, 1 bug collector, something like 12 failed assassins, and possibly God himself, Brian Doyle Murray's father's son. Tonight, on the film board, we unpack the Phoenician Scheme, the latest addition to the Wes Anderson cinematic diorama. We'll ask, is this a caper, a confession, or an elaborately constructed dream about guilt and redemption? And how many pastel duffel bags does one arms dealer really need? Sitting patiently against an undecorated pink wall, waiting patiently for whatever comes next, I welcome Tommy Metz III. Tonight, he's here to help us decode the emotional frequencies of Michael Cera's accent and determine whether Benicio Del Toro can, in fact, act with just his nostrils. Welcome, Tommy.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here.
And Steve Sarmento, equal parts philosopher and puzzle box technician. Steve Sarmento spends his spare time diagramming narrative symmetry with a fountain pen. He's here to explain why the Phoenician Scheme is actually a morality play disguised as an Air France safety video. Welcome, Steve.
Good evening. Help yourself to a hand grenade?
You can't do that long, like that whole bit. It turns out human beings have more emotion than I think Wes Anderson can do in a take. Hi. What a fun opportunity we have to talk about our first Wes Anderson film on the show. Why have we never done Wes Anderson?
Yeah, why is that?
It's JJ's fault, and JJ was supposed to be here to help us resolve this conundrum, but got sick, and so it is us carrying the torch of Wes Anderson. Can we start with a little table setting? Where do we stand on the films of Wes Anderson? Steve?
I think the best comparison I can make is to like a very light and sweet dessert. It's something that you enjoy while you have it. In 10 minutes, you've forgotten it, but remember it was good, but it's gone and there's nothing left to stay with you. And you will go back for more, but still be just as unsatisfied shortly thereafter.
Ouch. I think ouch, but maybe I didn't feel the sting. Tom?
I have not seen a lot of them. I saw Bottle Rocket, I saw Rushmore, I saw the Royal Tenenbaums, and then at some point I just sort of stopped going, and they kept coming, and the cast got bigger and the colors got brighter, but I just didn't, and I don't know why. I saw Asteroid City last year, 2 years ago, whenever it was, and I really enjoyed that. And much like this movie, yes, I agree with Steve that it is a beautiful situation, and I love seeing it in the theater. And by the time I'm in my car, I'm starting to forget large parts of it.
Yeah.
That being said, having really enjoyed the experience.
That may make it difficult to talk critically about the film that we just saw. Don't you think? A little bit? Because I'm in that same space. I walked out of the theater, and I know I didn't go to sleep during the movie, but I felt like I had just awoken from a dream. Like the whole thing feels so much like a dreamscape, and it's that sort of ephemeral too, right? It's like the images are there and then they're not, because I might have dreamed something very much like this. Like when I dream, it's very much top-down camera over a bathroom, and that I find comforting to the point that I'm lulled to a sense of calm and comfort, and that the memories don't stick. So it's interesting to talk about. I think I'm probably on the maybe just judging by how you talk about it, I'm on the deeper end of Wes Anderson. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan. I loved Bottle Rocket and Rushmore and Tenenbaums. I hated, for some reason, Steve Zissou, The Life Aquatic. I hated it. I don't know why. And it's so irrational that I feel like I need to watch it again, because I really struggled with it. But Darjeeling Limited, I didn't care for Fantastic Mr. Fox either. Apparently that should be growing on me. I need to watch that again. The rest of them, with the I have not seen the Wonderful World of Henry Sugar on Netflix, but the rest of them I've seen and deeply appreciate. And I love the experience of watching them, because the level of precision in the art and craft of this filmmaker is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. So I feel like whatever we think of the film, man, is there a lot to appreciate about this guy and the attentiveness he puts to his film. So all of that said, why the Phoenician Scheme? What did you, how did the movie, let's do our opening thoughts, initial thoughts on the film. However much you remember, what did you think?
There was more to this one for me to hold on to than Asteroid City, which I did not enjoy that much. One of my favorites of his is Darjeeling Limited. I think there's a lot for me to grasp onto this one. And this one, I felt like there was a through line that I could hold on to that there hasn't been in some of the previous ones. And maybe it's that mid-century, titans of industry versus the government type of thing. I got the sense of the self-made man that's out there to accomplish something, and now faces a bit of a crisis moment with, the assassinations and his bringing his daughter into the fold, trying to build the relationship with her. And I thought, okay, it's not that I can relate to this guy, but I get a sense of what he's trying to accomplish. There's still a lot of, things that I can't explain what the gap is. I don't know what the whole scheme is. I know there's something, there's the trans monument or the trans mountain or the trans oceanic. There's all kinds of things coming together as part of his big plan. Don't ask me to explain it. I don't think I can. I don't think it matters. There's a lot of talk about things that I don't think there are a lot of MacGuffins all over the place to just keep things moving, but I'm not bored by it. I went along with the ride. I had fun. There's quirky characters, but there's a consistency to them. And it was enjoyable. And I thought we have a character that could carry the story well in this one. And I think that's the thing that was the strength for me, is that I've got a character that I'm interested in, so that when we get to the final confrontation at the end, there was something to, things came together, came to a head meaningfully and reasonably, that I thought, okay, it wasn't just story, and then it ends. There was something that happened that was significant, I felt.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think the engine that keeps this moving and that makes it work is the trio, especially the nun and the father. But then with Michael Cera in there also, with who's a character that actually has a twist at one point, which is fun. If they weren't compelling, then the whole movie would fall apart because the movie's pretty episodic. It's kind of, he came up with a reason to, or a way or a device in order to just have a bunch of character sketches. Like we go to a place and we have this little character sketch and everyone kind of talks alike, but a little bit different, just different enough to be interesting. And so he just sort of has a bunch of sketches. The beating heart through it with them does make it work. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny at times. The fact that there is no emotion, that no one really has any emotion to it, you can't hide the jokes that don't work. You can't hide the bits that don't work. There's nowhere else to look. He's so controlled that it either works or doesn't. And there was one sequence in the movie that I thought was a disaster. We can get to that later. And it almost like took down the movie a half star for me because it was the film came alive in order to fall over its own feet, in my personal opinion. But until then, I mean, that's the reason why it's so ephemeral, I think, is that no one's really allowed to have emotion. That's why we've been saying things like admire. Like, I admire the film. I enjoyed the film versus like, this is a film that will stick with me. I also agree with Steve. At some point, I realized, I bet all of this incredibly important fast talk is not as important. It's important to the style and not the story, because I didn't understand some of the story either, other than we're just going to meet all these people. And at the end, they'll tell me if it worked or not. The end. And that's it. And that's kind of what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I want to take a sidebar a little bit on Wes Anderson's directorial style, because you mentioned the sort of lack of emotion, this sort of deadpan direction. What does that do for you when you watch one of these movies? Because it feels to me, whenever I sit down and watch one of these movies, I'm watching like through glass, like it's going on in a cage in a zoo, the Wes Anderson zoo, and their entire films happening at scale behind this terrarium. And that emotional terrarium is distancing. And yet here I am going to all the movies and watching them. I wonder what's your mental model for approaching character stakes when the characters don't demonstrate any particular emotional stakes?
I didn't feel any character stakes, and yet I still enjoyed it. That's why it didn't stay with me. I was never worried about anyone. I was never concerned about what happened. I mean, they win and they lose. He loses, spoiler alert, he loses his entire fortune. They're back to that same room with the dripping ceiling that we saw teased in the beginning. But what cost? But, the good cost is he gets his daughter back. He sort of gets his motivation in life back. But I didn't care. I was just happy to be there. I was happy to be there, like sort of strolling through an art gallery. Whenever the camera would move, it's always on a dolly. There's a couple whip pans, usually just left and right. And I'm like, I'm excited to see what the next composition will be. And it's never surprising, but it's always pretty because he likes everything. He's like one of the only directors that puts people right in the middle of the frame, which is something that they tell film students don't ever do. It's in thirds. Putting someone in the middle of the frame is like what we used to do when the train would come at the camera. But instead, he just loves symmetry and he loves all of those things. So to be able to enjoy that amount of control and confidence is really winning, but not staying. It's just not that deep. And so there weren't really character stakes for me. And I didn't really realize that until you asked the question. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think this was one, and I haven't watched, many of them recently, so I don't know how much blood or death there is in a lot of them, but it did really shock me early on. The first plane crash where his assistant is, there's an explosion in the plane and the assistant is, his top half is gone and there's a blood smear all along the wall. And I thought, that is not typical of a Wes Anderson film. And I thought, okay, but coming back to the emotional stakes, it's played very cartoony. It's an event that happens. It's sudden and drastic, and there is not really an extreme emotional response to that. And I think that's really the stakes. It is one step removed. It's a very hyper real world. It reminds me of, if you've ever, when you go to a theme park, the newer rides where as you go through the line, you're sort of slowly entering the world, and it has to get you in the atmosphere and convey all this information about the world to you very efficiently and very quickly. So like at the Indiana Jones ride, you're going to go through, you're going to see all these things that are set up that are supposed to be real, but they're very beyond the real because and that's what this entire movie feels like, is all these documents, all these things are there to create this sense, but they're all props. They're all fake. There's no substance to them. There's no meaning besides creating the sense of the world that you are going to be sitting in for the next hour and 40 odd minutes. So there's no emotion to it because it is really just taking you on a ride that you exit at the end.
That's a really good point about all of the props and stuff. One of my biggest feelings about the movie is I would like to walk around all the sets.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and open,
sure.
like as if it was an immersive haunted house or something, and open up all the drawers because everything would be real and beautiful and fun and like old timey.
All those
books
that he's reading.
I would love that. I would love that
Oh.
maybe more than like sometimes you can just like the fact that they're paintings, just like set up the shot and get rid of those pesky actors.
I want a Wes Anderson Meow Wolf, right?
Yes.
Like,
oh my gosh,
yes, exactly, 100%.
And it does. You bring up the books. Like I can't wait to see this on streaming because I want to pause it and write down every title of every book because there some of them are hysterically funny and I didn't catch them all. It's interesting to think about these characters because I sometimes think they're all. I mean, every character I can't think of a character in a Wes Anderson movie that isn't an emotionally stunted person trying to learn to feel again. Does that make any sense? I kind of feel that way here. Look, she's trying to feel her way out of religion and doesn't even know it until she is her sacred commitment is annulled. He is trying to feel his way into fatherhood again and figure out what that looks like, free from the trappings of arms dealing. There is a lot of that, and when you go back through the other some of the other in the catalog of Wes Anderson films, they have all of the same style. It's like it's emotionless, but mostly because every character is turned inside out. Like they're all, I'm so sad without crying because inside they're crying. I love you without they're like saying it's also cold outside, right? And I think that is an interesting thing about Wes Anderson movies that makes them appeal to me because they allow me to sort of be the emotional litmus test of a scene. That allows me to participate in an interesting way because I can put myself in there. It's like generic beans. I get to put the flavor in. That's a weird. I don't know why I brought up beans. Let's talk just really quickly about violence because you brought it up. I think this might be Wes Anderson, probably arguably Wes Anderson's most violent film. There were some things in. Did you guys say you'd seen Budapest Hotel?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there was like a throat slitting and some fingers cut off, and there was a prison shiv fight.
That's
there
right.
Were some things,
yes. Yeah.
But they're so absurd that there were probably more absurd than any of the violence that was here. Isle of Dogs, of course, had some really brutal dog fights, but they're animated, right? So that was different. Everything else is just really, I think, really emotional, like emotional violence, right? Everybody else is just really not very nice to each other if it's violent. I guess French Dispatch had its share of deaths. So I think this one was the most bold, and I'm wondering how that impacted your viewing of it. Like, not what you expected. Did it add something to the story, watching this guy get beaten up as he did and other people around him get beaten up? Did it work?
Steve already said, but the opening shocked me. And the opening probably bought him a lot of time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Just sort of like shook me awake from this isn't exactly what you're thinking about it going to be a Wes Anderson movie, as the rest of the movie was absolutely exactly what I was thinking it was going to be as a Wes Anderson movie. But it was always like, well, just you wait, maybe something else will, and it never does. And not in a complaining way, but it just never reaches that kind of surprise again on purpose. It doesn't want to.
I think the most graphic for me was, when he gets shot and it's just, pluck the bullet out. And he's sitting there with this wound just bleeding out. And I'm looking at that thinking, this is unlike other things that are very, flat or caricature or whatever. This is a very realistic, looking wound with blood, slowly trickling out of it. And I thought, I don't don't know what to make of this in this film. But when you have a character there are multiple assassination attempts on him, something has to happen. But I thought, okay, how serious are we playing this? And then it gets the pluck it out, and it's just fingers dig in there a second, pop it out, because all his documents had sort of slowed the bullet. So that sort of took it back to the typical, okay, no emotional stakes to this. It's a bullet, it's in there, just take it out and I'm fine. But throughout the film, his arm's in the sling, all that, so he's injured.
Right.
So it was something that did stand out to me. And I guess it fits in when you have a character where the world is trying to destroy him. But all the other attempts are so, that assassin, I think he worked for me before, and even the confrontation at the end with his brother, I think, Benedict Cumberbatch did so much acting with his eyes and eyebrows. It was like a German expressionist film of just, that's where the evil was. There was no true menace in it. Everything is cartoonish. Even his threat is not. So that's why those two sort of moments at the beginning and then the bullet ones stand out, because they are so distinctly different from the other assassination attempts, throughout the film.
And yet still, even in all those assassination attempts, it is that deadpan, emotionless experience.
Yes.
He feels no pain.
Right.
I couldn't help it. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm very interested in the Jack Quaid movie.
Oh, Novocaine?
Novocaine.
Yeah.
Novocaine. I kept thinking of that. Like this,
yes.
What if Wes Anderson directed Novocaine? I think we might get this.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he himself feels very safe.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. That's a great line, too. I actually think that's probably the mic drop line that I will internalize and use in my life the most from this movie.
I myself feel very safe.
I myself feel very safe.
Yes.
And I will not, a year, maybe two, I'll forget that it's from this movie.
Yeah.
And in 10 years, I'll watch the movie again, and I'll be so surprised that I've been cribbing from it for a decade. That's how it works, usually. I myself feel very safe. All right. The story. So I feel like it should be, we should make this like a game to try to piece together what the hell happened in this movie and why it exists.
He was too powerful and had too much money in his fingers in too many pots. And so the government works to do something to his something in order to put him at risk of something. And so he has to go around to all 5 different business partners, including his estranged brother, in order to get something from them that was a percentage. And it doesn't work, but it kind of works. The end. Is that pretty good?
That was so good.
In the middle, he is assassinated a bunch and seemingly going through some sort of judgment.
Yes.
Periodic judgment in heaven.
Yes. Okay. I'm so glad you did it the way you did, because what you did was a plot summary Mad Lib, and now it's up to Steve to figure out the words that fill something.
Yep.
And honestly, Steve, like truly, I'm really interested in your perspective on the judgment, the divine reconciliation bits through this thing, because I have a feeling that gave you something to think about.
It did, because the first time that happened, that was the other thing that I do not recall. It seemed very uncharacteristic of a Wes Anderson film, because there's this bold edit and the image is in a black and white negative, and then it flips back and now it's black and white, and we're in a very, again, like early 20th century depiction of some type of heavenly realm with just cotton fluff around and people sitting on benches and all of that. And I wasn't sure what to make of it. He turns to is it his mother or his grandmother that is there? And she's like
grandmother, I think.
Grandmother, and she's like, I don't know you. And I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting, because it's playing around with this. Is this a rejection? What is this back and forth? And as we keep coming back, it's giving him some information. It's somehow enlightening him as to something, because it seems like he takes something from each vision or out of near-death experience. There's something that he gets from that. I don't know that it's clear. I couldn't make a clear connection of like, oh, he got this nugget, he's going to use that to leverage, or it's going to help him develop his relationship with his daughter. So I couldn't track those points. I don't know that I'm supposed to, other than there's an assassination attempt. He has a near-death experience. weird things happen, and he's taking some knowledge from that. Because I could not parse out what was going on other than we get to see Bill Murray as God, allegedly, I guess.
Right.
So, I mean, there, as with everything else, very interesting looking, lots of talk with not a lot of substance I can peg anything to. But again, I don't know that it's for us as the audience. It's for meaning for the character, for him to take something from.
Here we have ostensibly a Cain and Abel story where we have the marked man, right? We have this guy who's metaphorically guilty of spilling blood. That's Zsa-Zsa. He's an arms dealer, right? He's struggling under the weight of past choices. And we have his brother whose moral stance seems to be the like most righteous of them. And because it's Wes Anderson, at the end, it's inverted. And instead of Cain slaying Abel, he's trying to make amends. Is there any room for
I don't
that?
know. I watched the Vanity Fair interview. Wes Anderson explains his films.
I didn't watch that.
But he gets a little bit into story, and because I wonder about how tightly structured things are, because I think visually things are very tightly choreographed, where things have to enter frames at certain times and all that. But the sense I got from that interview, that story, he's got the story. There's clearly some improvising that goes on. He even says, the art of writing itself is improvisation. You're starting from nothing. So create something, you have to improvise, you have to make it up. And he talks a little bit about the sort of the process is the movie revealing itself. So it's not that he's got a specific finished product. I think he's willing to say, oh, well, this seems to be working. Well, okay, let's go towards that. So I think that maybe some of these things we might try to pin some things specifically on might just be it seemed to fit the story well, and it resonated at some level. We'll go with that. Not that there was any intentional, I'm doing this, he's going to see the three former wives there, and that's going to represent this or that. I think it's it seems to feel right for this guy to go through these things. It's sort of how I'm now taking that information of, he's like the exact opposite of a David Fincher of like, this movie is built to every second in my head, and I'm going to do that. And he's sort of like, well, we'll discover it a bit as we go through.
That's a good point. And I wonder, you said he doesn't truck an allegory. I think these are very allegorical scenarios.
Yeah.
And I think that the idea that his own family does not recognize him, that he sacrifices something in the forest and opens it up and it's just filled with money, that it looks like in the beginning, the very first one, someone is opening the book of his life in order, like a St. Peter, in order to be judgment. But then instead of opening a book, opens a casket where maybe him as a child.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that kind of stuff. It is a little alarming to try to use. I desperately need it to be allegorical because this film I don't feel this film allows any kind of like David Lynch dream logic, because everything is so tightly wound. That's almost like, it just makes me think it's like pretentious or out of ideas or something. You know what I mean? Just like, it makes me angry if it doesn't mean something, because everything in this movie is so
well
pristine.
thought out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's so interesting about it for me. It's like this whole movie is walking that tightrope between this one character's exploration of like the vengeance thread in the Old Testament, while also trying to navigate toward the grace thread of the New Testament, right? And it's like I find that fascinating because I don't expect it from Wes Anderson movies, and it just felt like it was screaming. Tom, you've now dropped the hint twice. We have to talk about your least favorite sequence.
The fight at the end between him and what's his name?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
It didn't make sense. Stylistically, it didn't match anything. I thought it was ugly. I thought it was weird. I thought it was hard to decipher. It was weird the one time when his camera dared to be handheld and dared to be not nailed down to a rail. I thought it was terrible. I hated it. And it deflated so much of the movie. All of this control. It could have been cool to have this crazy, but it's like he didn't know how to do it. I don't know. Like, he's just not trained that way. I know this is the first movie that he hasn't used his longtime cinematographer in a long time. I don't know, but I mean, it looked, until that sequence, it looked exactly like everything else. But I just thought it was so weird, and I don't mean to use this word, but like cringy. Like, I just thought the fight was so, everything's leading up to that, and it was such a disappointment. And it really like put through the movie down a peg for me, hugely. Obviously, I am alone on that.
No, I mean, it reminded me of things from like, I think of the Marx Brothers, where it's just like somebody's running around and they're hiding behind things, and they're popping out in different places, and it's exaggerated actions, and it's sort of, I guess, screwball zany of things running around.
Zany, and what's that doing in this movie? It was too broad.
Throwing the little vial
right
at him, all of that. It felt like that. So I was along for the ride. It didn't feel like such a jarring shift for me, so it didn't bother me as much, because this is, every other attempt to kill him has been, this assassin, where now he's dealing with a face-to-face his enemy on this. So I just took that as, okay, now sort of the charade is gone, we're going to deal with this directly. Does that justify that? I don't know that necessarily would say that, but I just took that as, okay, we're entering a different phase of the story here now. So because everything else, the other thing was all the design and everything was very Middle Eastern, that whole Phoenician thing, everything. Once we get to that, we're in a completely different place than we have been for, the entire movie. So the look was different. So for me, I just accepted that, I guess.
I think I accepted it too. I think you actually might be on an island here,
sure,
Tom.
I'll allow it.
And there were a couple of things. First of all, I really enjoyed. I might be an island. I enjoyed the actual diorama of all of the plans having come together with the waterfall and the trains going back and forth. That was really fun. And so the satisfying Cumberbatch Godzilla moment where he climbs up to the top and then the grenade, he explodes with the grenade. I was really satisfied by the way his arc came to an end, and how everything, like the tower falls.
Yes.
And that was, I guess maybe I've just stuck so deeply into the biblical arc. But the other piece is, our cinematographer, Bruno Delbonnel, done a lot of Tim Burton, done some Coens, done Joe Wright, Alexander Sukharov, David Yates did The Half-Blood Prince. So I feel like this was his first Wes Anderson film, but it wasn't really his first Wes Anderson film.
Sure.
Like he's done incredibly opinionated visualists before. And so I give him some credit there. This, in fact, he did Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the Tim Burton adaptation of the book. And I think you could see a lot of parallels between the lensing of that movie and this one. Which is strange to say because it's so unique and iconic in its own way, but especially that final sequence was interesting to me. So there you have
I've
that.
said my piece.
Okay.
And I like the Godzilla Part 2, and I love the model thing. It was just that fight scene.
Yeah.
It's like it felt like, if it wasn't this director and it wasn't this movie, I would go to see this movie and be like, oh, they really ran out of time.
Interesting.
Like they ran out of time to film that sequence, or they burned so much time on all of these excruciatingly controlled things. Then when it was time for the fight, they were just like, all right, just chase me around with the camera. And if we get in trouble, we'll Benny Hill it, speed it up slightly, go broad, give the people what they want. And it's like, that's not what I wanted at all.
Yeah.
The end. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I totally get it. Especially when, like, I was, from the moment, like the opening credits sequence, I was just like, I had chills because I was so fascinated with the layered outlines around each letter in the typography as it appeared, and the way the color mimicked the outlines in the tile floor. Yes. And I felt like I was playing Where's Waldo with words. Like, when's the next word going to show up?
In the bathroom. Yeah, that was great.
Like the helpers are moving in slow motion a little bit. I thought that was so great. And if you're going to spend the time to make that then yeah, I think you're right. Then let's not
Yeah.
Benny Hill the final sequence, right?
I completely agree.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But again, so much of this stuff, I feel like it just demands a second viewing.
Sure.
I just have,
Oh,
I
yes.
have to see it
Yes.
again. Okay. Do we have any sort of thematic issues? We've talked a little bit about the biblical stuff, about transactional relationships versus transcendence and finding the end. The gift of hand grenades, I think, is an interesting one that they keep coming back to. I don't know why that was a thing. Obviously, it's rooted in his arms dealership. Is there something else to it that I missed?
Other than early on, he says they're cheaper than bullets or something like that. It costs him less than actual bullets. But they're in a little like fruit crate, something that's been repurposed. But yeah, no, I was wondering about that because when we get to, his brother, he's like, oh, would you like a hand grenade? He's like, oh, got my own. It's like, okay, so there's something. But again, I don't know that you can ascribe meaning to it other than it was consistent throughout and it was of a piece of itself and it just fit that world. I mean, it's as I said, it's that hyper real world. The other thing I think of is the quicksand. We're in the era where quicksand is a thing that is, a danger, and it's like hand grenades. Those are the things that are out there because they're this sort of existential threat.
That's funny.
Whereas a bullet is something that's very real and I think very relatable to today versus no one's throwing around, thankfully, no one's throwing around hand grenades. It is something that that's the only sense I could make out of that is it represents something without having a real strong emotional resonance or connection to anybody in the audience that might feel that, bullets or guns may, trigger some things.
Well, at the end, right, speaking sort of symbolically, the hand grenade is a representation of, we are the architects of our own destruction.
Yes.
I think is an interesting thing, especially because the whole thing's anchored in him as an arms dealer.
Yeah.
I thought it was nice. I especially liked that they were painted so beautifully.
Yes.
So Wes Anderson hand grenades are the best. Shall we talk through our favorite performances?
Ooh.
Benicio.
Captivating.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's one of those actors that can just do very little, and it's just always interesting to watch.
He's such an interesting performer that he can go back and forth between things like this and Marvel and 21 Grams and Big Top Pee-wee and be just absolutely captivating as a performer. Yeah. I think the movie set us up with him, after the crash when he gets up and we have that extreme close up on his face. I thought, is this going to be a movie I'm going to have to close my eyes through a lot because that eye was horrific.
Yeah.
And we get several of those throughout the film. It was something else I don't recall in prior films. I know we're always centered and straight on, but this was full just face filling the entirety of the frame, and that's not something I recall seeing done often or as frequently, because I want to say it's probably occurs like 3 or 4 times. But it's his story to tell, and I think the performance works. I think he really keyed into who this guy was. The bit about he doesn't have a passport because he doesn't need human rights, associated with any one country tells you that he's a unique person. And I think that, it's somebody that I don't know that I would ever want to meet or know someone like him. But the performance, I think he found the right person for this character.
And that eye, the close up of that horrific eye, I think does help you side with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if someone always feels safe and believes they're safe and never has any emotion for something, then there's no one to back. But the fact that you've seen him hurt, and when he hilariously shows up during the news interview of how would you like to, oh, there he is. He's just sort of like slightly off frame.
That was really awesome.
Fun. Yeah. That's fun. Yeah. It makes him a little bit devilish, but also vulnerable. I know I said there was no real stakes to feel, but at least you know that he's not invulnerable. Because then you're at risk of just watching like a Forrest Gump or a Mr. Magoo just sort of travel through life and just accidentally stand on the crane at the very last second instead of falling to his doom. That kind of thing.
Right. I think he was the perfect face to lead this thing. Really, really liked him. Then we have to turn our attention to Mia Threapleton.
She was great.
Had you seen her in anything else before?
Have I?
Yeah.
A good question.
That is a good question. She hasn't
Thank
been in
you.
much. She was on television. She did 6 episodes of Dangerous Liaisons. She was in I Am and The Buccaneers. She was in the main cast of The Buccaneers. She was in a couple of shorts, Scoop in 2024, Firebrand. She was Joan of Arc, I think, in Firebrand. Shadows and A Little Chaos, going back to 2014. She is the daughter of Kate Winslet.
Oh, that's fun.
Can you see it now? Can you
Yes,
see
I
it?
Yes, now I
absolutely
can
can.
see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering what else I'd seen her in because she looked familiar. The answer is no, I haven't, but
No.
that's why. Okay.
Yeah. She hasn't been in much. I imagine she'll be in plenty more. I thought she was quite good.
I thought she was great, and that's a rough role because she's not allowed to be as expressive facial-wise as Benicio Del Toro, and yet
Right.
she has to have the same deadpan kind of arc, and I thought she was arch kind of attitude,
Yeah.
and I thought she was really extremely watchable. Their relationship was one of my favorite threads, and it's probably what the movie really is about.
Yes.
Yes.
But I liked you could see it step by step, and especially by the end, sitting back and watching them go through things. Wes Anderson was really good about doling out little connections, little things. Oh, you armed yourself. Good for you. Like little moments of them slowly coming together of two people that can't actually talk to each other. I thought that was really satisfying. I like that.
I did too. I think the moment, there's that little moment, besides them at the end serving food together and playing cards at the very end, which I thought was just the icing on the cake for their emotional arc, starting from the table where he's giving over airship to her. My favorite moment was when she had pulled out her knife, which was absurd, and he traded her with the new knife
Yes.
for the new knife. I thought that was such a weirdly loving moment and a real mark in the fact that he'd made a turn on their relationship.
And tellingly, he offered it to her. He didn't. She took it from him.
Yes.
She
Right.
made. So he offered it on her level. She made the decision. That's them communicating. Yeah, which is neat.
Really, really special kind of relationship. So I think she was great. She was a great nun. I like the arc of her sort of trying to feel her space in the Wes Anderson world and helping him, her father, find grace, right? Find a relationship that he can count on, which wasn't much before. Okay, Michael Cera.
Buren.
Where do we stand on Michael Cera? Our loyalty and bug boy energy.
When you cast Michael Cera, I never know what to expect or what I'm gonna get out of him. So I mean, it's interesting because I thought, oh, okay, he's playing this character, but then when we get the twist and the reveal, and he's like, oh, this is who I really am. I just thought that transformation. The tie comes undone and everything. And I thought, and we get another character out of Michael Cera. I just love that so much about it, about how he was used in this movie, all of that sort of the unknown mole at the beginning of the movie to becoming, again, part of the team, really getting accepted and as part of that team. It's sort of like the misfits that sort of are able to, and I guess he has that with Liesel as well, of like these moments of like transparency with each other, whereas everything is so, as Tommy said, behind a glass. They have these human moments with each other to the extent possible in a Wes Anderson movie. I mean, you don't get them, the emotional resonance to it, but the characters have those moments where you see, oh, there's connections going on here. And I thought that was handled really well, and it made sense, and it worked well with him in that role.
Has Michael Cera ever been in a Wes Anderson movie before?
Not that,
because if not, he is made for it, and I bet Wes Anderson is going to adopt him like he adopts actors. Michael Cera is going to be in every single Wes Anderson movie from now on. He's perfect for it.
Yeah.
And I really like Michael Cera, even when he's not doing a lot. I also think he's very interesting. I loved the turn of the trick. That he is playing a different person. The only thing that brought it a little bit not as fun for me as I've seen him do that trick before. Did you guys see the movie Youth in Revolt?
No.
Oh, no.
He plays his own alter ego, like his own alter ego is like a super cool, spitting on the floor, smoking guy. When the normal him is that it's almost these kind of reverse. So I've seen him do that before, so it didn't strike me too crazy, but I thought it was really fun. I like him a lot.
I did think it was fun. And I did think at the beginning when we first meet him, I thought, I wonder how long I'm going to be able to put up with this accent. I hope this isn't legit. And so the turn was really nice. And finally seeing him settle into the head of the class role at the little coda at the end with the bug on his hand, I was like, they played this perfectly. They played it absolutely perfectly. And it makes the early Cera that much funnier. I think it was really, really well earned. From there, we have a coterie of extra little performances. I think the big ones that stand out, I think the pairing of Bryan Cranston and Tom Hanks was of particular delight.
Yeah.
Would you take them on 2-on-2, first to 5?
The most American of the Americans.
Yes.
I think that Cranston's calling his shots in particular made me laugh the most, but both of them, I think that sequence was written so well. It was so funny that their meeting happened sort of illicitly at the place where the two train tracks don't meet, by 50 feet. I thought that was really, really perfectly architected, and it was really fun to see them. Thoughts on them or any of your other favorite stunt casting bits?
I was really pleased by how they didn't overlap too much. That I talked about before the episodic struck that were, and I mean, Wes Anderson, you can think that he writes the same characters over and over again, but that's wrong. They are weirdly distinctive. And it's not just their weird hats that they wear or weird choices of like eyeglasses. Like they're all deadpan and weird, but I don't know. There's just something really interesting about all of them. And he picked the right people, and Riz Ahmed was really fun.
Yeah.
And I would think that maybe he would be maybe wouldn't fit that world as much. Maybe I haven't seen enough of him, or maybe I'm mixing him up with Rami Malek. That's very possible. Either way, he formed into that world perfectly. Like everyone.
Yeah.
I believed everyone in the world, which is always invited. Yeah.
What's funny about those guys? So Riz Ahmed and Mathieu Amalric and Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think
Jeffrey
those
Wright
three,
was so fun. Yeah.
So fun, and they were really those guys were allowed to emote in ways that the other characters were not. Like of all the emotion,
that's interesting,
that is missing from everyone else, we got some real spasmodic experiences of emotion from those guys as they were dealing with trauma. Mathieu Amalric, when pulling the bullet out, right? He was downright anxious, which is saying a lot for a Wes Anderson movie.
I think it's the fact that we only get them for those just few minutes, but they are not forgettable. You know, they do stand out, but not in a way that's like, I don't want to say like they're flat, one dimensional. I get a sense of like, oh, I could see them again in another film, because there is something to them. There is a history. There's something hinted at with each of them, whether it's the brothers, or we've got the nightclub. The ceiling is getting shot up, and it's like, oh, what is this nightclub place? And what is going on in this country? We've got the rebels coming in. And I thought, okay, there's something interesting and intriguing that a good writer can get across, versus like, oh, this is just a generic type X character that is this. Oh, he's a businessman. He's the nightclub guy. I've seen 1,000 of these before, but these are all unique, and they get that and quickly, efficiently. And the emotion piece is coming back to the whole scheme is he's backed out of the deal. He's changed the terms on them. And so it's like, these are guys that have money at stake. So it's like we get to see, because again, our main character is just very, very emotionless. It's like, this is business. This is my plan. This is how I'm going to go through things. Well, yeah, when you screw over the partner in your plan, they're going to have a reaction to that. And so it is interesting to see how they each sort of handle the betrayal that he's trying to downplay. You know, like, oh, no, we'll take that back, right? Like, no. You don't just get to take that back and all is good and done.
There are consequences.
Yes.
There are consequences, and they're laid out so plainly. It just maybe because it's a Wes Anderson movie, it feels like, I think, Clippy pops up and says, "Would you like me to outline consequences?"
Yes.
It's very, very clear. I would love to see a movie where Tom Hanks and Bryan Cranston get shared top billing. And I don't know, it's got to be like a Bosom Buddies kind of a thing, an Odd Couple. I don't care what it is. I want those two guys, those two faces on screen together. They deserve each other.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite sequences. Okay. I can't believe it. But I think we're reaching the end of our time together here in the Phoenician Scheme. And yeah, I know. And that means
it's been very pleasant, and I will not remember a moment of it.
Not a minute of it. I've already forgotten anything before the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So let us transition, if we can, to Letterboxd. Letterboxd.com/thenextreel. That's where you can find our HQ page. And now we have to apportion our hearts and our stars. As you know, the rules that are never obeyed, there is a fixed number of stars in the world. And if you place stars here, you have to take them from something else. No one ever pays attention to this rule.
Nope.
It is key to the entire system. I feel like the dam's going to break. That's the rule. Go ahead, break it. Tom, what do you think?
Never understood. I've taken so many hearts away from the finest hours. I don't. It's like it is in a hole. It is in a hole, just like she did. When the movie ended, it was a strong 4. By the time I got to my car, 3.75, and now 3.5. Unfortunately,
wait, after we talked about it, it got worse.
Well, just because you guys brought up sequences that I forgot. I forgot about him getting shot. There's just not enough sticky. So I love the experience. I will see his next movie, and I'm really glad that this exists. It is so ephemeral. It's a great word for it. I mean, I'm going to give it a heart, absolutely. And if I see it again, I bet it'll go back up to 4. And then I'll see what it is 3 days later, because I just cannot remember. I'm going to give it a 3.5. I can't give it a 4 because that's what I gave Sinners. And Sinners, I still think about sequences from every day since I've seen it. What sequences am I remembering from this movie? Well, I can remember my favorite part. You want my actual favorite part? It was in the closing credits. This is the only. How do you know that you're seeing a Wes Anderson movie? Because there was a pinochle consultant. That was an actual credit towards the end of the thing. Pinochle consultant. I was like, Wes Anderson. Like, if you just told me that, I'd be like, Wes Anderson. Of course. Yeah. Pinochle consultant.
That's outstanding.
3.5, huge heart, and it will always, as soon as I see the movie again, it will go back up.
I like that, Tom, your rationale for applying stars needs like a 5-year moving average. I think that's funny. It's like a stock pick. Okay.
Yes. Things are looking up. I would put a price checker on my tracker.
Steve, what do you got?
It is tricky to rate these movies because, you asked me, like, as I'm walking out of the theater, like, what did you think of the movie? It's like fresh. It's right there. And then over time, like, oh yeah, things fade. But then again, we have this conversation. And I knew this was one that I had really enjoyed because there was something more to it. And so I'm going to go with 4 stars because I think it is above some of the others. And Tommy, I hear you about comparing, but it's like, I'm looking at it in terms of the scale of Wes Anderson movies, not comparing it to like a movie like Sinners, which was an amazing film. So I never could put 4-star films against each other. I could say, within the world of Wes Anderson, where does this fall? 4 stars in a big old bleeding heart. Yes.
I love it.
I think I'm glad you brought up Sinners. I just watched that again today. And
wow.
It's very timely.
Is it streaming?
It is.
Okay.
Well, I knew when I saw it that I was going to want to own it. And so I put in the pre-order for the digital, which came out this week.
There you go.
But I do sometimes when I think of movies like these, I go back to Ebert, right? Like you have to judge the movie against what it's trying to do.
Yes.
How well does it do what it's trying to do? Because there is no comparison for me between Sinners and this movie. And in terms of Wes Anderson movies, in terms of the aesthetic that he's going for, this is very near the top. I frankly, one of the great things that this movie inspired me to do is to start going back through other favorite Wes Anderson movies because I really love the aesthetic. And if that's one thing that comes out of this experience right now, is that I'm going to dive into Wes Anderson a little bit harder. That's great. So I land on a 4-star with this one and a great big heart as well. That averages out to a 3.8. It'll be a 4 on our Letterboxd channel. This was a really fun movie. I'm so glad we did it. I'm so sorry JJ was not able to make it since it was his pick. And man, don't you agree? It was better than Y2K. I don't know about that.
Damn it. What a horrible legacy I have.
Okay, but in 2 years, which film will you be able to summarize and recall better? Y2K or Phoenician Scheme?
Absolutely Y2K. And the emotional weight that Tom carries forever because of it. Look, that allows us to transition to our coming attractions. What are we going to do next month? Tom, will you do the honors?
Absolutely. We're going to see a movie, and I got 2 words for y'all. Maybe Triceratops. All right! We are getting the Dino Gang back together. We are going to see Jurassic Park Dominion. Why, says the world? We don't know, because we love these movies. And we have been burned and burned and burned, and we're going back for more. Gareth Edwards is helming this one. Hopefully ScarJo's in it. We're going back-to-back Scar. And hopefully this one will dig out the dino hole that we have been in for a while. I am for all things dinosaur. I'm very excited.
I'm excited because I hope there's a dinosaur garage again. Remember the garage in one of these damn movies? There was the dino
I remember
garage.
The dinosaur model.
And the dinosaur elevator.
Yeah.
There was the dinosaur model walk. You remember that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we have a lot to look forward to, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
So, yes, that's coming up for our July pick. Go see this movie because it's a movie that probably needs more theatrical attention. Spend some bucks. Go see it. I don't care if it's a matinee.
It's worth it to see it. Not always do you need to go to movies just because they're big and loud and scary.
Right.
I don't know, like Jurassic Park Dominion. But instead, this movie is a visual feast. And so it's so much fun to watch.
For sure. Worth it in the theater. Don't bother D-Box, though. There's no, it's not that great.
The seats just sliding left and right.
It's just dollying back and forth across the theater. So much dolly track. Do you agree?
So
I wonder, I wish I could have invested.
D-Box would be funny if you tried to look at like one half of the frame, it would slide. So you had to look at the middle of the frame all the time. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and your attention. Whether you agreed, disagreed, or just came here to shout at your phones, we appreciate you. Whatever you do now, watch more movies. Don't let them get you angry. And remember, just because it has a post-credit scene doesn't mean it's not wearing pinstripes and wide lapels. Meeting adjourned.